Well, good afternoon. Welcome from the team at CJ Learning. My name's Chris Jones. I'm here to talk to you about Smart Curriculum Introduction, creating and leading and resourcing outstanding curriculum provision. Now, the process that we go through are that there are three basic pillars. The data that we would analyze with you, and it is a partnership, and it's not about a health check and saying you're doing it wrong. It's not looking the same as everyone else is doing. I would suggest that Smart Curriculum is about gaining a significant higher level of understanding. That means you can justify and strategize around what you're doing. We are investing what we're investing for this purpose. So we're building curriculum with an investment potential. We are buying our staff because this staff will work, does what it needs to do. And we've got that an understanding relatively of the finance because that resources the curriculum and the staffing makes it possible. So is the curriculum the right size? Is the staffing appropriate? And can we afford that? So those three pillars work. Now, what we would then do is break that down into detail, and we work with you to consider that. And I won't go into that detail because you can see it on the screen, but the different types of people, the different funding opportunities that are there, and what you buy in terms of teaching and support. So then we put that data together and create what we would refer to as a snapshot. The snapshot would be your current practice. This is where you are. Now, we work with a lot of schools that are either in deficit and are looking for deficit recovery, or are not in deficit, but are projecting challenge over the next few years because of incremental drift in terms of salaries, or curriculum drift in terms of we've got to a size that we need to consider is appropriate for the future. And then obviously all the opportunities that come within that. So there is the possibility to project forward. Now we put all that data in, we provide a snapshot. Now within a license, which is an annual license, you would create that base point, that baseline from which any development work, modeling work is a comparison. If it's about making savings, then that can be seen. If it's about considering where our investment's going and whether we need to reorient our investment, then that's also possible. So once you've done your snapshot, we would then reorient the data and get to a point where you've got another report and you can compare that data within the report. So once you've got that data, there's a bit of understanding to work through. Now we talk about the language of enhancement. So enhancement is another word for investment. It's a strategic decision to put money, put finances, put resources, put curriculum time where it would have the most effect. But to make any comparison, rather than just saying, well, let's have a look at what everybody else is doing and see what we are against everybody else, I would suggest what we need to do, and what we've championed within Smart Curriculum, is that we have an understanding of what is the baseline capacity, what is the basic that we can provide with an understanding of the funding and the curriculum structures, and then where are we allowing enhancement, or where are we creating enhancement? We're putting more in a larger investment to achieve a goal. Now that might be, let's consider a curriculum. If you said a school has a collection of year groups with a number of children in each year group, if it was possible to make every single class in the school have 27 children in it, which is the capacity that the funding is calculated on the basis of 27 or 28 children, but let's be generous and say 27. If every single class had 27 children in it, how many classes would you need to deliver your curriculum? So if you had 27 in a class across every single class in the school, what would be the number of lessons that would be on at any point in the curriculum? And then within a cycle or a week if that's your pattern, or a cycle if it's longer, in your cycle, how many days are in that cycle? So multiply the number of periods or number of classes that I would need to have 27 in each class, multiply it by the cycle, and that will get me a baseline. Now, what we might do then is enhance the curriculum by putting more periods in certain places. So we make slightly smaller classes so that the curriculum does what we want it to do. Now, where we put that enhancement is a strategic decision that we make. It's not a global decision to say, absolutely, that's the baseline. Although there are schools and trusts that are doing that. They're suggesting we will work at that level because we will use the money that's saved by reducing the size of the curriculum to invest in other ways. So enhancing either resources or capacity in some other form. So the enhancement strategy is this: understand the baseline curriculum, understand where we would want to invest. You would then buy, I'm going to use my mouse here, so that's my level of curriculum. So that's what I've planned. I buy the staffing to facilitate that teaching. Now, there's normally a certain amount of capacity or surplus in that. Some schools run that very tight. Some schools are slightly more, have more surplus. So there, my enhancement question is, how much staff do I need to provide the baseline, and how much staff do I need to provide that curriculum enhancement? Managing this construction allows us to have funds that are released for other things. So you could do this, just to summarize this, I know my average class size, I know my cycle, I understand a baseline curriculum, that's my planned curriculum, that's the bit that I've created, I've invested my time, I then buy the basic staffing to fit that curriculum, and then I might have some enhancement. Now, typically what we see is going on is that schools that don't have this kind of narrative will design a curriculum without any understanding of the baseline. They'll maybe have some knowledge of any of the matrix, but they're not talking to each other. They might buy staff to deliver that basic. Now, let's say there's a bit of enhancement, so I'm buying a bit of extra staff. So I've bought 8% extra here. So instead of 2,000 periods, which is what I'm basing it on, I've bought 2,160. But then the narrative that we hear in a lot of schools, most schools are thinking, well, okay, I might be able to overstaff in particular areas. So I buy a bit more staff, but when you buy that staff, you're not going to buy them just and have them sitting around. They need to do something. So we plan the lessons that they can teach. So my baseline has now become 274 teaching periods larger. So now these people that have been employed are on permanent contracts. So I need to use them, so I'm going to use them. So, but I've given them, more time. So as I come to next year, my baseline is not 2,000, it's 2,274. And if that understanding of enhancing goes on, so I want to buy a bit of extra, I buy a bit of extra. Now my periods now are 2,456. And now if I'm still in that mindset of I'm overstaffing in my core subjects, now this is obviously a secondary model, but we see it in primary schools and middle schools the same. I'm going to buy a bit of extra staffing. Now we create the curriculum that fills their time, and then we come to next year, we've got them as full contract substantive staff, but we still have the mindset about growing. We have that extra. I want a bit of extra because we live with the curriculum size we've created. So what we've done is to create a much larger curriculum. It's now 25% bigger than it was previously. And that's what we see. Now, we see 25% extra curriculum compared with a baseline calculation as fairly typical. We have seen extremes where they're 50 to 75% larger. So in this case, it would be 3,000 periods plus. But the conversation is about having that view of what is the baseline. So Smart Curriculum and the app is about understanding that start point, understanding where it's come from, and then being able to respond to it. So this upward trend in curriculum size, I call curriculum drift, but this is one dimension. Now, if I was to show you a fairly typical, this in this case is an all-through school, nursery through to year 13, what I would be looking for here is where are those high points of investment? The high points of investment actually are around the thresholds of assessment. So you can see here, years 5 and 6, years 10 and 11, and year 13. Year 13, because classes seem to be smaller. Year 10 and 11, because we've got lots of options and we've invested in intervention classes. 5 and 6, SATs preparation, putting specialist teacher in, buying that extra specialist teaching, reducing class sizes a little bit. But that's typically what we see. In this example of the primary element, there's also the impact of role. And it could be that your enhancement is because your PAN is below 30, much below 30. I think in this case, the PAN is 72. And that's a difficult number to be working on classes of 27. So you either have very large classes, 2 classes of 36, or 3 classes of 24. The 3 classes of 24 is a lot below that average class size of 27, and it creates a significant cost. Now you can see the role sizes would be challenging there. But can you see where's the investment? The investment here is not in Key Stage 3, the investment is in Key Stage 4. I would describe those two things as progress and attainment-focused curriculums. Progress-focused curriculum, you put it where you want it, where I need to respond to need. Threshold-focused curriculum or attainment-focused curriculum, I put the investment where the thresholds are. And it might be too late, and we all know that intervention is not the only answer. So there are some models of, so we could do the same for an 11 to 19 school, and you can see the kind of change that some schools are looking for. This school is not investing heavily, got larger classes in the sixth form, but they use that to invest heavily in Key Stage 3 and 4. However, both of these schools are attainment or threshold focused schools. You'd see the same in a primary school. Interestingly, we see nurseries that take a great deal of investment, and actually they draw money from the rest of the school. And then similarly, this is a school that's investing early, so they're reducing class sizes early so that they can reap the benefits later. So that's SMART curriculum in terms of its theory. Now, the app itself is a dashboard-based system. This school is a secondary school, but it can be a primary school with exactly the same format. I'm going to show you the secondary one because that's what's on the screen. So the overall enhancement, you see we've got that figure. It's not built between the 3 and 8%, which we would suggest is a threshold, quite large here. This is a threshold-focused, sixth form heavy curriculum. Here is my planned curriculum. The planned curriculum is 2,428 teaching periods. The baseline would be 2,049 teaching periods. So that's the 18%, that's that bit there. And then we've bought 2,700 teaching periods. That's 318 teaching periods surplus. Now that, just to explain, that doesn't include management time, that's an addition. It does include the top line that so if you've got a cycle of 25 periods, you would normally say with PPA that no teacher would teach more than, 2.5 periods less than that. That's a difficult number because it includes half a period. Now, generally, most schools go for 21 or 22 teaching periods in that instance. The 22 teaching periods only gives people 3 teaching periods, which is half a period over PPA. So you're giving a bit of enhancement there, but that's just because of the structure. If you're in a 50 period cycle, then it's 5 teaching periods, 10% PPA. And then are teachers teaching 45 maximum, or are they teaching 41, 42, 43, or whatever? Now that extra bit is calculated elsewhere, but we can see that obviously that's an amount of teaching time and it costs. So in this example here, the budget and the number there of FTE staff means that every single hour in the week costs £2,720. If you multiply all that enhancement, the teaching time that's been given 2 teachers sums to, in this case, £433,000. And it's not unusual to see £500,000 of investment in that time. And some schools we're working with are talking now about, from a governor's level, the level of enhancement, the money that we are investing in you as a teaching staff or as a staffing body, is £500,000 across the staff. And that's an insignificant contribution at this point, and that's what people want to understand. What are we investing for future benefit? It's not critical. It's not suggesting that it's going to be taken away, but it is a conversation about the level of investment. Now, some schools are also linking that with their PP budget. So pupil premium is around supporting the staff to do their job better with the children. And if you've got a high number of PP, it could be that saying that every member of staff would have an extra teaching period above PPA is a pupil premium benefit. And we're going to use that money to invest in teaching staff to do what they do better, whether that be in student support or whether that be in planning and preparing work. So there's a whole lot of spectrum of things that the app will do. Now, in each of these 3 pillars, we would then go down into more detail. Within the curriculum section, there's detail about pupil numbers, pupil teacher ratio, and then the use of support. So if you go back to my conversation earlier about the curriculum enhancement, where we're investing from a teacher point of view, I'm investing in this school more in the 6th form and less in terms of they've got quite large classes, so there'll be 27s and higher. But then I'm also saying I'm investing heavily in support. Now, there's an educational question to be asked of, would I be better to invest in teachers early on and then support later? Or is all of that recovery, catch up, and so on invested in teaching support staff? Now, there's an interesting conversation to have there, and some of our schools are having those conversations. How does this profile, which is the support profile, relate to my investment profile? Now, in addition to that, you'll see there's data and there's some figures, and they go into pupil numbers and capacity of the school and so on. Classroom metrics, which are about pupil teacher ratio, the hours of support investment per pupil. And then we go to the curriculum model itself. And here is a year 7 model. That's the curriculum time that's planned for this year 7. We've set this threshold at 27 teaching periods, or actually in this case it's 28. So the ragging here says, well, these class sizes are above that 28, so they're marked green. These classes are below the 28, so they're marked red. They're not wrong. That's just an indication of against that threshold that we've suggested. So this school is planning for slightly larger class sizes. They've achieved larger class sizes for the majority of the year group. There are some places where they've chosen to invest slightly. The investment overall enhancement is at -3.4. Now that means these classes are at 30 because they're running at capacity. It's a 6th form entry school. They've got 6 classes across the year group, and all of there are quite a few of them that are larger. Now, if I was to go back to my enhancement chart, the baseline is 2,058 teaching periods. If I was to go up to my 8% threshold, I've got 165 teaching periods to invest. That's maybe the maximum. So the question at the moment is, if I went back to the baseline and I held that body of 165 teaching periods, where would I use it to best effect? And it might be that you're saying, well, I want to use it here rather than where I am using it. Now, we know that this is invested heavily in Key Stage 4. That was the impression. So again, it's a 180, 182 in the year group. The investment at 2.1% is not massive, but it would appear that there's an amount of time within Key Stage 4. These classes are a little bit smaller. Some of them are larger. These two are larger. That probably, I mean, this is is a real school, but it's been anonymized, there might be a conversation about whether this is appropriate, and it might be that there could be another class in here. At this end, in options A and B, obviously B, there are quite small classes. And you'll notice as I move over it, the coding that's used, there's a bit of description, and that's typical of right across the app. So what we're looking at is conversation about, is this serving us well? Are we investing where we need to invest? So enhancement here at this level, average class size is slightly lower than the 28 targeted, but it is within, actually no, hang on, I beg your pardon here, the class size targeted is 26. So in this model, it's been edited so that we have that class size modeling. So their suggestion is their aim is 26 in Key Stage 4 and 28 in Key Stage 3. Now, and you can model to that. So this is giving you the grounds to have those conversations. So all of the other numbers are around those figures. Now we also then go into analysis of the staffing, how your staffing is deployed. So typically here we've got planned and bought. We've got our baseline, we understand our baseline, and we've got these figures working for us. We can then break that down to management areas, technology, sport, science, performing arts, maths, languages, humanities, and so on. So bought against planned. The planned teaching time is what's on the curriculum. The bought teaching time is the time that comes from the teachers that I've employed. Now, if we've got teachers that teach across departments, we can include those, and you'll see it will animate. If you watch that again, you'll see some of the charts move up and down. Now that animation allows there to be conversation about shortfalls in staffing. And clearly here, we've got a shortfall in humanities staff. So it might be that we need to do some appointing. Now, across the chat, the app, if you press the table, it will take you to that table data. Here is where I can see humanities, I've got a shortfall of 120 teaching periods. I might be using some time from other departments because I know I've got some surpluses, or I might be looking to employ people, and I've got a list here of staff who are out for vacancies. Now I've got some teachers, some support staff, and some admin clerical, but here are my teachers, and at the moment can't see any humanities on there, but there's a range of staff that I would be buying for next year, and I can print that as a PDF to come off from the app. But then once I've got, this is my summary data, I've got all of this information about my school, but I want to look at where that data comes from, and I've got the capacity to go into the data and explore my staff list. And give it just a moment. Here is my staff list. St. February Secondary School. If I filter it down to just teachers, because that's what I'm looking at the moment, here is my staff list of teachers, and here across this side, I've got this is the subjects they teach, so my teachers are labeled over here. Here are my subjects from a base subject list, and here are the second subjects and third subjects that these staff might teach. So I can do some analysis, and I can change staff to a different subject area, and I might pick another subject, or I can add, this person is now willing to teach another subject, so I can add that in, and I can give them some teaching periods. I'll save that down, and that will now add some time to another department. So it's all base data, but it's all informing that conversation. So your curriculum management staff, your HR staff would be involved in this part. We've now, you can see at the top here, got some ability to include details about the staff from a financial projection point of view. That data is not visible on the main screen. So they might have a status, leader, UPS, qualified teacher. They might have a TLR, and that's flexible within the new freedoms that schools have got, so they can describe them in a different way. We use a fairly generic way of describing those people. We've got some agency staff here. We've got some permanent staff, and we have some fixed term staff, not on the screen that you can see there. We've highlighted here some vacancies. This one that currently is an agency member of staff, but it's gone out to advert so that we're looking for a substantive member of staff. But on other screens, and I'm not going to show those in this demonstration because we're doing a brief introduction, but I can go in and I can put the scale point, and that scale point, using my knowledge of where this school is in the country. So this is an outer London school and we've got the current salary ranges. It will then project the value of each of those staff. So if we go back to our app, I'm now looking at the finance. Now the finance will give me a picture of the staff budget relative to the funding that's coming in. So in this school, 70% of its funding is coming from per pupil funding, or PEW as we used to call it, the age-weighted pupil unit, but we're spending 80%. Now the current recommendation is that that would be too high, and it needs to be approaching 72%. So how and what strategies are this school going to use to get that funding into a particular place? Because the funding is all about the pupils. So maybe got some small classes. Could we increase the class sizes? Would we need to appoint all of those staff? Maybe some of the agency or fixed term staff are not needed in that mix, and there's a transition journey to go through to make that work. So here we have a set of data that will support those conversations within a school. We can access it as a teacher, a leader, a governor, a business manager. There are levels of security that will allow those things to occur. Now, within an annual license, you would receive 2 licenses. So the snapshot I talked about in my original presentation, the snapshot in this case is that's where the school, in this, the assessment would have been. Once that snapshot is locked, a report appears. And so here is a report with some recommendations about practice that you might step into. And then there's some strategic questions that are aimed at governors and senior leaders to answer about the questions that rise from the data that's in there. So the first one, how does the amount of curriculum enhancement we've established meet the needs of all of our learners? And now that might be, if I'm investing heavily in the sixth form and I've got lots of PP, SEN, high need students lower down in the school, the question is, how does this level of investment, the curriculum enhancement that we've established, meet the needs of all those learners? Now that's about a question of equity. The funding is coming in. I don't know if you saw the funding chart that I showed you just a moment ago of the income. The sixth form is taking a large amount of money away from the school. It takes some money to achieve what's planned there. So as an equitable position, is this curriculum enhancement right for our children? Is it doing what it needs to do? Does the curriculum, how does this level of curriculum enhancement provide a fair distribution of per pupil funding? And does it reflect equitable investment of the additional grants we receive? So it's a question of how that works across the school. So there are around 10 or 11 questions for each of the 3 pillars. So you would get a report on the curriculum, you get a report on the staffing, similarly questions that base there, the strategic questions, and a question on the finance. And then there's opportunity within those, whoever's going to be writing those answers, to write them and share them, and then they can be edited and added to. It's a collective wiki-based narrative. It's a dialogue that's going to grow. This is what we do, that's how it works. This is why we're doing this. This is something we need to look at. So it's a governance and a leadership questioning structure. Now, once those reports are written, we can export them. So you can either export the whole element, the black one, the black print icon, or just the section that you're concentrating on. So if you just wanted to have some deep conversation about curriculum or staffing, you could go into those, and therefore it would either be a dialogue in a meeting, a Zoom, or a governance meeting, however that's being done at this point in time, or you can do it as a paper exercise of a written scripted answer, which then would be shared with the team. Now, the levels of access allow you that to operate. So the report appears within the locked data set. The annual license means that that's available for the year. That fits schools that want to do a single year review. And then obviously the annual license on a rolling basis allows you to do this and build your practice over time. And in the years that we've been operating, we've got schools that are now, it started with us right back at the beginning, 3 years ago, and have now got 3 years of data that they are showing and tracking their growth through the school. And as you can see, the questions I asked here, the dashboard is showing all of that data. Where is our investment and how is that working? And then as a school, we can then move between those, and you'll see it'll animate. It's live data. You'll have access to your school. If you're a MAT and you've got multiple schools, then obviously in the analysis tracker, you will be able to pick up all the schools that you're working with. And then obviously you can, again, so you can see multiples. And we're working towards a dashboard, a top level dashboard, where you'll be able to compare those schools. At the moment, we're working on an individual school basis to build that practice within the schools, but the narrative is growing and we are working on developing that dashboard to allow that comparative work to be done. So come back to the center. So smart curriculum method is around understanding. It's about growing to a position where we see what's going on in the school. We have a narrative around the 3 pillars: curriculum, finance, and staffing. Everything that's reported is done in those 3 areas. And as we do that, we come to a position where the dialogue among the leadership and the governance of the school is much clearer focused on curriculum strategy, on investment or enhancement, and where things are moving forward. I hope you get from what I've presented to you the detail. I will just leave you with the contact screen. So if you want to get in touch with us, please do contact us. You can contact me directly or through info@cj-learning.com, or call the number that's there. Or if you want to book a demonstration or you want to book a call, please do contact at cj-learning.com. Go to the contact us page, and then you can book a Teams or a Zoom meeting or a phone call, whichever is right for you. But Smart Curriculum is there to help you understand.